Climate change is an issue that in today's society is always front of mind, with studies showing that urban areas are simply not adapted to global warming and could become genuinely uninhabitable in the not too distant future unless we invest in resilient cities by completely reinventing urban sustainability. Whilst there are many ways to fight this problem, perhaps one of the most promising methods is that of urban agriculture. The Resilient Sydney program recognises this issue, and Direction 2, known as Live with Our Climate, is amongst others aimed at adapting policy and planning frameworks to reduce the urban heat island effect on Sydney in order to sustain our quality of life and our environment. Sydney is not alone. More than 50% of the population of the world lives in urban areas, and it is expected that this number will only continue to grow. The urban heat island effect has been well documented in cities throughout the world, with average temperatures in a city of 1 million people being on average 1 to 3 degrees higher than surrounding non-urban areas. The western suburbs of Sydney, due to its unique geography and lack of sea breeze, is particularly prone to extreme heat events and experiences more than 3 times as many days over 35 degrees annually than Sydney. With Sydney expected to be home to another million people by 2030, despite its more favourable geography and cooling sea breeze, it is likely that Sydney will experience similar increases in the UHI effect, and the Sustainable Sydney 2030 program aims to reduce this negative effect by 2030 in order to sustain our quality of life and our environment. The UHI effect has been studied extensively and is caused by several different factors, including physical aspects of the landscape, such as dark absorptive materials, canyon-style streets, trapping heat, as well as the use of high thermal mass materials, as well as anthropogenic heat production, such as traffic and plant equipment. Urban agriculture and urban greening in its various forms has been shown in numerous case studies to effectively combat the UHI effect. Of 2 studies selected, one focuses on the adaptive reuse potential of inner-city multi-storey car parking in 3 English cities by converting them to vertical agriculture, and the other focuses on the positive effects of green roofs on the UHI effect in Chicago. Both explore how urban agriculture effectively targets environmental concerns, including the UHI effect, air pollution, social issues, urbanization, and the effect of technological change on the urban fabric. The British adaptive reuse case study predicts that reductions in private vehicle use will result in many inner-city car parking megastructures becoming redundant. Due to physical constraints, many of these are not suitable to be adaptively repurposed for traditional inner-city uses, but are well suited for vertical agriculture, addressing numerous environmental and social problems, including the UHI effect. The Chicago Green Roof study found that in a typical urban city, rooftops account for 20 to 25% of land cover, and determined that converting as little as 25% of the city's roofing resulted in a 2-degree reduction in the urban heat island effect. This was as a result of the cooling effect of increased evapotranspiration, removal of pollutants by vegetation, and reduced ground level warming through solar radiation. Based on these case studies, it's clear that vertical urban agriculture offsets urban-induced warming and is very effective at addressing the UHI effect through reducing atmospheric warming by the redistribution of energy, as well as having numerous positive social and environmental impacts. The case studies demonstrate that while green roofs and facades are already a well-tested, feasible and cost-effective technology that has the ability to greatly improve the livability of our cities, they're not widely adopted by private landlords and developers as there's simply no financial benefit. Therefore, changes to planning frameworks are required for this to become more commonplace. It has been demonstrated the UHI effect is more effectively reduced by numerous smaller areas of vegetation such as green roofs than by a smaller number of larger parks. So from an environmental perspective, public money may be better spent on incentivizing landlords and developers to convert to green roofs rather than focusing on creating and maintaining inner city green space and parks. Even without a financial contribution, other concessions such as the CEFC loan program or plot ratio concessions are likely to be an effective tool to improve uptake of this technology. In the long term, which is likely some decades away, vertical inner city agriculture could well become a commercially viable activity And creating a new zoning type for this may also be an effective policy mechanism to encourage this land use. This plan of action is only a small part of moving towards a more resilient Sydney and should be implemented in parallel with other key policy levers, including reducing anthropogenic heat emissions through limiting private vehicles, industrial activity and heating and cooling plants, legislating the use of more light reflective materials to minimize the heat sink effect, and implementing a broader climate action plan similar to those of cities such as Chicago. Urban agriculture is an effective tool for creating more resilient and sustainable cities, and it is considered one of the seedbeds for innovation. Whilst the adaptive reuse potential of existing car parking structures into productive urban farms will be a long-term process that has to overcome legislative, economic, financial and technical barriers, green roofs and facades are already a proven, technologically feasible and cost-effective method of addressing the UHI effect and other environmental concerns such as excess water runoff, flood hazards and air pollution. If these methodically and effectively become a part of Sydney's urban landscape, we have a real chance of ameliorating the UHI effect and creating a resilient and sustainable city, with the alternative result of inaction potentially leading to our cities eventually becoming uninhabitable.